I think we need you to be unmuted, Hurianti. If you can do, there you go.
Yes. Hello, and welcome to T2F Facebook Live. And today we are moving forward with dance. And with me is the lovely, very talented choreographer, instructor, director of the Noorani Dance Company, a performer par excellence, Farah Yasmeen Shaikh. Welcome, Farah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That was a lovely performance and a wonderful introduction to you. Farah, you are no stranger to Pakistan and absolutely not a stranger to T2F because you have been coming here and performing and also taking workshops at T2F. I believe since 2016, or was it the end of 2015?
Correct. I think the first time, so I've been coming to Pakistan, of course, since I was a child, as you know.
Of course.
Disclaimer for everybody: Hurianji, of course, is exactly that, my auntie. And so both my parents, as you know, they were born in Bombay and lived most of their lives in Karachi before moving to the States. And so we would come back every 3-4 years, give or take. But the first time I came to Pakistan in the context of sharing my dance form, Kathak, was, yes, at the end of 2015.
Right. So, Farah, let's start with the beginning. How did you come to dance? I want to know. You know, so many people say, I wanted to dance since I was a baby, or it was always my calling. Did dance come to you, or did you go to dance? How was it for you?
Sure. Well, I think I really have to credit my mother for bringing dance into our lives. And when I say our, I mean my sisters and mine. Growing up, I was born and brought up in a small town in California. And, kids get into sports and all sorts of activities. Well, the chosen activity for my sister and I was dance. And so from the age of 5 to 18, I was studying more Western forms of dance, ballet, jazz. I was a baton twirler, actually. Very deeply committed to the training. I think even as a child, teenager, I was dancing probably at least anywhere from 4 to 6 days a week, and even started competing at a certain point. So the point being is that dance has always been a part of my life. I didn't necessarily see it as, oh, this is going to be my path into the foreseeable future. However, when I graduated from high school at the age of 18 and moved to San Francisco for college, it was then that I realized really what a profound influence dance had in my life. And for about 3-4 months, I didn't dance, and my body just really was craving that movement. It was the only form of exercise that I'd known, and expression in so many ways. And so that is when I really say it was my kismet, and I found out that a Kathak class was offered at a university in San Francisco. And I decided to enroll in it, and came to find out through talking to my parents about it that not only was the art form offered, but it was being taught by a world-renowned master, Pandit
Yeah.
Chitresh.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that is exactly what I was just about to ask you. That why was it this particular form of dance? I mean, classical dance and then Kathak. Were there other forms of dance being taught at the same time where you were living or where you were going to university,
Yeah.
or was it, as you said, you just found out about Kathak classes? So
Yes, there were. And at the time that I enrolled in Kathak, there was also a flamenco class offered. Flamenco, of course, being from Spain, and also taught by a renowned master of the form. So I enrolled in both, and I got waitlisted for flamenco, and I fortunately got into Kathak. If I had gotten in, I would have taken both. But again, I really feel that there's, divine intervention at work. And if it had been Bharatanatyam or another form, or not at all South Asian dance, I still likely would have done it. But I think that there was something pointing me and guiding me in that direction. And that was over 24 years ago. So needless to say, I wasn't a dance major. I was a women's studies major. But, you make decisions in your life and you don't realize the obviously profound impact they are going to
yeah.
play.
Of course, of course. So you said that you found out that it was the guru who was going to teach you was the world-renowned Pandit Chitresh Das. Can you tell us more about him, about his school of Kathak, and
Absolutely.
how? Yeah.
So Guruji, as I refer to him, Guruji he was originally from Kolkata, India, and he had been in the States since 1970 and had been able to establish a presence. Both he had his own institution and, of course, then in this university setting where, again, it was an accredited course. So that was my point of entry into studying with him. But I also very soon after joined his institution, Chandam. And at one time we the school had grown so big. We were the largest classical dance institution outside of India. I think we had close to 700 students across North America. And, you know, he was a traditionalist in so many ways, but also an innovator in so many ways. So studying with somebody like that, the foundation that one gets on the dance floor, I mean, he was such a stickler, for a lack of a better word, as far as the movement technique, as well as the knowledge, the history, the theory. He, you know, those of us who were South Asian, he was very much also, you know, the art form was a gateway to learning more about our culture. The tehzeeb was a big part of, you know, that etiquette that we had to imbibe in the class and really out of the class. And you know, studying and training with him, it was not easy, but nobody can argue both the passion in which he felt for his art form and the way he taught. I mean, his energy was boundless on a stage, in a studio, in his practice. And so he was somebody who practiced what he preached. And so that kind of example is something that I think all of myself and my peers, we hold with us. Sadly, he passed in early 2015. But, you know, the gifts that he gave of that training, skill, knowledge, it was so deep that undoubtedly we hold it with us every single day.
I have watched quite a few of his videos after I saw you dancing and after I came to know about him. And I've seen some of his wonderful videos of fusion with, you know, tap dancers. And also, I'm just reminded that when you were talking about technique, he introduced the technique of, what was it called? Yoga? Kathak yoga. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So the project, the collaboration that you mentioned, just a little thing about that, when he worked with this tap dancer, Jason Samuel Smith, they both were very committed to not using the word fusion, because when he would do collaborative works like that, it was really not about sort of diffusing Kathak. It was about bringing Kathak in whatever other form of dance or music and having there be an exchange and a conversation of sorts through the medium of those forms. So he was deeply, again, committed to that concept. Kathak yoga, to answer your question, was this idea of the dancer in theory becoming their musician, where again, the idea of yoga, we all hear this term, yoga, comes from the Sanskrit word yug. And in Kathak yoga, it was the idea of a union of mind, body, breath, and it being this use of technique of Kathak. So whether that was just footwork and you were reciting and singing the language of the tabla, the teka, you were singing the nagma, the melody of the chosen rag. He would even add the layering of playing an instrument where he would play the tabla. So he'd be reciting, singing, playing the tabla, dancing. We would play manjira, the finger cymbals, and then some even took on the playing of the harmonium, where we place it on a table and play the harmonium while we dance. So that was Kathak yoga. It was initially a form of practice, like a meditative, he would refer to it as meditation in motion. And it really was.
Great, great. And Farah, so were you, while you were with him, were you teaching classes? I know you were one of his star pupils and star performers. Were you also teaching?
I was, you know, there were a number of us. Very kind of you to say I was one of his star pupils. I was very committed, and I was very lucky that I came to him at a time where my life was very moldable, if you will. And I made that choice to commit to that training. And so those of us who did that, yes, he gave us opportunities to be members of his acclaimed dance company, where we would tour and perform both in the US. We would go to India quite often. And we also had the opportunity to become teachers, instructors in his school. So that was very much part of both my training, my experience at cultivating that experience of not just holding the knowledge and the skill for oneself, but passing it on. You know, these traditions only maintain if you pass them on. If you hold them for yourself, then what's the point?
Right. And at some point, you decided to go on your own, form your own dance company, start your own classes. And how did that come about? What led you to do that?
So, you know, the relationship with a guru is a very intense one. It's somewhat comparable to that of a parental relationship. And you know, there can be moments of not always completely agreeing. And over a long period of time, I again was so fortunate to receive all that I did from Guruji. However, I did make the decision in 2014 that it was time for me to explore sort of my individual artistic voice. And again, always credit and honor everything he had done for me and continues to, even though physically not present. And so I decided to start teaching and performing on my own. And in the latter part of 2015, I founded my own organization, Noorani Dance. Noorani, of course, is my birth name. And I thought it was a wonderful sort of homage to that, even though I go by my married name, Shaikh. And I also love sort of the meaning of Noorani. In my mind, it also has sort of a dual meaning of enlightenment. So we say enlightening minds and hearts through the arts is what Noorani Dance stands for. And it is a cultural arts organization, a nonprofit based here in the US. We have a dance school, and we put on productions where sometimes it's me performing in collaborative works with musicians, actors, and or other dancers, and or productions of our student base.
Okay, so we will talk more about your productions, but just before we move on to the second piece that we are going to show, I believe there is a student of yours with you right now. So can we have a glimpse of her? Can we see her?
Yes, I must say I'm missing all of my students because, you know, we're in this quarantine period, but I am lucky enough. I've been seeing all of them on screens. I'm lucky enough to say that one does live with me. She's probably my most, she challenges me the most as a teacher.
There she is.
This is my daughter, Aziza.
Hi, Aziza.
Oh, sorry, I need to give her this. Here you go, Janu.
Hi.
Hi, Aziza, are you practicing these days with mom?
Yes.
Oh, great. So I look forward to a solo performance when we see you next.
Inshallah. That will take a lot of practice, huh?
Great. It's really great to see the two of you, and it really warms the heart when you perform together, when you're teaching her, and you put up these little videos, and I really enjoy watching them. So shall we move on to the second piece that we're going to show? Farah, would you like to introduce it?
Sure. And I just have to say, you know, the first piece, I know we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but I just have to say the beauty of that piece is, one, I should mention all of the pieces that I've chosen to share in this event are actually collaborations with musicians of Pakistan. I was just so lucky. I know we're going to speak a little bit more about the work there, but just the way that the musical community embraced me when I first came in 2015. And that first piece was one that was the first that they shared with me. And I think the first time we rehearsed it was right there at T2F. And this second piece is actually, it's a category of Kathak that we refer to as Thak Bol Parant. And this is where a dancer essentially explores a chosen tal, a chosen rhythmic cycle, and with the musicians kind of builds up in movement, in musicality. There's some exchange, some of it improvised. There is recitation, so you'll hear me recite the composition and then dance it, as well as Yusuf Karai, who's on tabla. He'll be playing also the syllables on the tabla. On the tabla. And on sitar, we have Sheroz Hussain. And I have to say this was a very unique experience because we created this in this time of, you know, using technology. And I have to say it was so difficult to match up the sound, do the editing. But the thing I truly missed the most was that exchange and energy. So this is a little bit of a teaser, but no, it's nothing compared to the joy and what we can bring live. But for now, this is a Thak Bol Parant in Tag Rupak, Rag Girvani.
Let's watch.
I think we're just queuing that video up for us. If not, Aziza can do a live performance. There might be a little bit of a technical difficulty again.
Yeah, these online things are all very new for all of us.
Yes. If you don't mind, I'd love to talk a little bit about the musicians then. Oh, let's see.
Okay, if you're having problems, maybe we can continue. Okay, I think it's coming on now. Great. Beautiful. I'm sorry we were lagging a little bit, but one has to put up with these things with all these online,
Well, and
programs, which we're still learning how to handle.
absolutely. I would say, I think even the internet agrees, live performance is way better. So.
Okay, Farah. So very quickly before we move to your third performance, I think many people in Pakistan and of course people in the States are familiar with your magnum opus. I'm calling it that, even though I'm sure there's so much more to come in your career, The Forgotten Empress. Tell us a little bit about that. And then I want to talk about your second project, the Partition project, which is very interesting, very relevant to the subcontinent.
Definitely. So for those who don't know, Kathak comes from the word katha, meaning to tell stories, and the kataka is the storyteller. So, at the heart of the art form is storytelling. What we just saw was purely rhythmic. But traditionally, stories have been told based on the Hindu epics, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata. And as I mentioned, when I was sort of trying to discover and uncover, I should say, my own artistic voice, I had just read a book. It was one of historical fiction based on the historical figure, Empress Noor Jahan. And that was really the catalyst for creating a project which is now titled The Forgotten Empress, in which we tell the life story of, at birth, her name was Mehrunissa, who became Noor Jahan. And to me, it's a story not only it's a unique display of how to utilize Kathak because it's telling a story of the Mughal period. I'm certainly not the first to do that. But it's an opportunity to really uncover the layers of, we put these people in a historical framework, and she, frankly, is very downplayed for her contributions. And so hence the sort of tongue-in-cheek title, The Forgotten Empress, where in actuality, her contributions to society were quite vast. And she was just such a woman ahead of her times in so many ways. So it's a project I continue to love doing. I play 12 characters, men and women. I have 4 brilliant musicians, an actor, a phenomenal playwright. We even brought the project project to Pakistan in 2017. And the beauty of that, I will say, is that we premiered it. Its international premiere was actually in the city of Lahore, which is where the Empress is laid to rest. So, I mean, just such a gift to be able to offer our, some token, some gesture of respect for who she is in our history and how she continues to be an example that we should all be looking to.
I think you also did it for the Fairs Festival.
I haven't performed that for the Fez Festival. Vanessa Hashmi Saiba, she did, of course, she is the one who oversees the Fez Festival. She did help to make it happen in Lahore.
Okay.
I have had the chance, of course, to be at the Fez Festival, but not shared that work specifically.
Okay, but you have performed at the Fairs Festival twice, I think.
Correct. Yes, with Yusuf Shadows, many musicians
all of
from the
yes.
US. Yes.
And I when you brought the show here, it was lovely because all the musicians came with you, and it was wonderful meeting all these talented young people.
Yes, I'm very lucky. Yes.
Yeah. So let's then, okay. So your second project, which is also called the Partition Project. I remember when you came one time and you were telling me about this, and we were talking about partition, and you said you're interested in doing something. So how did that then pan out, and how did the project come together? I know it had a lot of theater as well as dance in it, and it had other groups collaborating with you.
Yes. So the Partition Project, we had its first phase. It premiered in 2018 here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And it was a collaborative production that I did with the theater arts organization. So we had about 50 people in the cast, made up of dancers of various genres, Kathak and Bharatanatyam, as well as some folk dances of Punjab and Bengal. And then we had actors. And so it was woven together by a script and really meant to tell the stories of lived experiences of partition. We are quite literally in the second phase, my collaborator and I, Vanita Sudbelani of Enact Arts, and we're looking to launch that as soon as next year in sort of smaller formats and build into a larger production yet again. But really the intent behind this work is, I'm a believer that art is a medium to really bring about, to provoke dialogue. And something like partition, I mean, it's been almost 75 years now. And here we are, we're still frankly stuck in this place where we are still dealing with the repercussions of, the communal violence, the religious divide, whether it's across borders or not, or within respective countries. And so I think we have to look to huge pivotal moments in history to both learn from the past, ideally, change our present, inform the present, and absolutely change the future. So that's really what this project is about. And I think that art, music, dance, theater, poetry, all of these are just ways to uncover the conversation and bring people together in a dialogue that it's overdue.
Right. So on that thought, they say that art is always, it's only relevant when it's socially relevant, right? So two things come to mind. One, how did the audience in the USA react? What was their feedback to this project? And how do you see yourself in the current situation and what is happening right now in the United States with the whole Black Lives Matter movement? It's not something new. It's something that's, that people have been facing for many, many, many years now. So how do you see yourself co-opting that in your work?
Well, as I said, I believe that art in and of itself is a form of activism. Depending on the setting, the context. I mean, this is why I so greatly respect even what T2F does, is because it's about creating a platform for people who have a message, who have a way to reach others. And again, art is more often than not at the forefront of that, whether, again, it's performance-based photography, poetry, literature. And so I believe that it is a call to action. There it's sort of twofold. We have to preserve these artistic traditions in and of themselves. That in and of itself is a movement. So when we see something like what I just did, where it was purely technical, that is a form of activism, because I feel very committed to preserving a tradition. But when I can take it to another level of using it as a form of social messaging, historical relevance, social relevance, etc., I think that is a calling of all artists, and we can do it in different ways. We may not all feel comfortable getting on a stage and doing it. I personally feel deeply committed to doing so. And so whether it's through the Partition Project or now, like you're saying, the Black Lives Matter movement, again, this is not new. This has been going on for centuries in this country. And tragically, it has taken more and more and more events, atrocious events, to take place to get to this place where the world is seeing the US in this place of we can no longer sit silent, regardless if you are Black, if you're a person of color. South Asians have a huge responsibility in acknowledging how the civil rights movement in the US is actually what allowed so many South Asians, my parents included, to come to this country. So we have to honor those who worked hard for us, and we have to do it. We have to own our privilege. Just because I have brown skin, I am not treated the same as somebody that has Black skin. And whether that's even, we see that in India and Pakistan, the way that color of skin there's a hierarchy, and this needs to be abolished across the world. So whatever artists can do to bring that awareness, to show and to perform pieces that are sometimes abstract, sometimes literal. We see it and hear it a lot in music, but this is our calling. We have to take that responsibility. Now, having said that, I will also say it is up to the population at large, both to get involved and to support artists as we do this work. Support us to help to do this work. Right now in these quarantine periods, what are people doing? They're looking to art. They're looking to watch performances. They're looking to take lessons. We are the lifeline to sustaining society. And so feel that sense of, we have to feel that sense of responsibility and calling. And I absolutely am part of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I know you also have a podcast called Heartistry, and if we have time at the end, maybe we'll talk a little about that. Farah, do you want to move on to the third piece, or would you like to incorporate Yusuf right now into the conversation and maybe leave the pieces for the, later on?
Let's do that. Let's bring Yusuf in, and then we can see if we have time for piece number 3 and 4, or we might just skip to 4 in the interest of time.
Okay. So can we have Yusuf? Hello. Hi.
Hello.
So this is Yusuf Karai, the very talented Yusuf Karai of the Tarz group, who plays beautiful tabla. And Yusuf, you have been working with Farah now since 2015. And but before we talk about that collaboration, tell us a little bit about the Tarz group.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me here, and I want to thank T2F as well for a great platform, as always. Thirst Group was established somewhere around 2010, 2011, at that kind of cusp. And this was my response to the state of affairs of classical music, as it's called, but I like to just call it South Asian music in Pakistan, and its promotion. And I felt that we were losing many of the younger listeners that were not kind of being enthralled towards this music. So I was lucky enough to have great musicians kind of come to my rescue and help me in this mission. And it started with my collaboration. Of course, because of my guru, Ustad Khurshid Hussain, I had access to some of the best musicians in the country. And then Ustad Sajid Hussain was the first person to kind of take my hand in this project. And his son, his prodigious son, Sheroz, whom you heard in the earlier video as well.
Absolutely. He's actually your protege.
No. I think with Sheroz, it's really I feel happy and blessed to have had the opportunity to be a positive influence for him, to help him with things outside of music. I think that's very important for musicians here as well. That now it's not enough to be a musician. You have to be promoter, organizer, and all of
Yes.
those things all in one. And I think Faraji would
Right,
definitely
right.
agree.
So Yusuf, tell me, before you worked with Farah, had you ever worked with a dancer? And if not, how were there any difficulties? Was it, how was the whole process for you? And of course, Farah, you can chip in and say how it was for you working with, totally new musicians in a new environment.
Well, before I met Faraji, I had very brief encounters with Kathak dancers while I was staying in the US. And one of the more significant encounters was just the opportunity, really. It wasn't even really a practice session, the opportunity to learn a little bit from one of the Shagirds of the Lucknow Gharana, one of the Shagirds of Pandit Birju Maharaj, Yogini Gandhi ji. And that was a very brief interaction, and I was very grateful for that. I had always wanted to, in fact, there was a time I had wanted to learn Kathak myself. But there were certain limitations for that to happen. However, so I have it, but this is not to say I haven't worked with dance or dancers. For the most part of my undergraduate education, I was my job, my part-time job was a dance accompanist for the modern dance classes. So I, in some sense, uh, I prefer the order in which I got exposed to working with Kathak dance, because I got to work with a very free form in which you had to think very abstractly, and yet with a form like tabla, trying to kind of find ways in which interpretation can happen without too many of the I would say the necessary restrictions that, let's say, Kathak and our South Asian art forms have. That was great to just get the creative juices flowing. And
Also, you are a maths teacher, and I think this had a
Yeah,
lot of maths involved.
absolutely.
and it was actually in that same undergrad degree that I discovered that mathematics was something that I was also
Yeah.
likening to, and so it was all kind of coming together. And then I think I wouldn't have had it any other way. I got to meet Faraji just at the right time, because uh, thanks to my guru Sat Khurshid Hussain, who exposed me to such a wide array of repertoire within tabla, that it was very easy. In fact, Faraji will remember the very first meeting we had at my place, in this very room that I'm sitting in right now. And it was just a matter of, she would recite a bowl and I would transcribe. I mean, and I also realized later that there is no right transcription within the world of tabla. I mean, there might be more ideal ones, but it's really about kind of meeting the performer where they are, and kind of making sure that synergy happens. And it happened, and I think that was, for me, that was a big eye-opener, because it allowed me to kind of confidently go further with accompanying Faraji
If I
in
can chime
many
in a
forms.
little
Yeah.
too, so I have to say the beauty of this event and having the opportunity to speak and have Yusuf join us in the conversation, it was actually quite literally T2F is the reason we even met. As I was planning to come in at the end of 2015 and stay through most of January of 16, different people were introducing me to different organizations. My parents had happened to be in Pakistan earlier in 2015 and were taken to visit the space in T2F. And they actually had the great fortune of meeting Sabine. And that was sadly something I never got a chance to do. They met her, the friend who took them told them about what I do. And she said, oh, we must have her come here. And I was able to fortunately do that. You know, her mother, Menaz Auntie, was there with so much love and support when I first came to T2F. But it was actually Marvi Mazar at that time that put Yusuf and I in touch. And
Exactly.
it was that work that has obviously developed into this very long-standing relationship professionally. And, you know, it really is like family now. Yusuf was even here with us in California in 2018, actually quite literally today. He 2 years ago, he performed with one of my students, Isha. He stayed with us. He was our first artist in residence. But the intention in me going to Pakistan is for there to be an ongoing exchange. I should have actually been there right now. I had plans because of COVID. And then Yusuf was going to come over here, and we were going to be going to a festival in Montana. So, you know, it's just, again, these moments of crossing paths, and you just never know where it will lead.
You know, there's so many questions in my mind. Unfortunately, we don't have so much time. You know, it's very difficult now to find musicians who can accompany dancers, especially, I mean, for the South Indian dances, for Bharatnatyam, for Odissi. It's very sad that, you know, all the musicians, there are no more musicians who can accompany those dances, that form of dance. And it's wonderful that you found Yusuf and you were able to collaborate and all that. Shall we move to the next piece?
Absolutely. And just sort of as a segue into that, I just want to say that, you know, me coming to Pakistan, yes, it was a personal desire of mine, but it is the work that has been the years and years of commitment in a society where it was not very easy to be a dancer or an artist in general. And it is really based on the work that those people much before me laid for me to even have a window of opportunity. And of course, Nahid ji, you know, all the people that even came before her, Nahid Siddiqui ji, Shima Kermani ji, who of course is still so active in so many ways. Part of my time to be in Pakistan this summer would have been to actually spend some time working with her on a future project. You know, there are Nigat Ji, Nigat Chaudhary, there's so many. And of course, there are many in the musician circle as well. So Yusuf and I, of course, and I just have to say, Yusuf also is making a vast contribution at Habib University through this department that he has developed, a music department in which he is bringing these senior artists, his Ustad, Sajid Saab, different artists that are teaching their craft, violin, sitar, tabla, vocal, and teaching it to students in an environment. Traditionally, it has not been offered in that environment. And so now they have access to preserving their culture, their arts, being turned onto it in a way that nobody could have expected in Karachi, Pakistan, thanks to your commitment, Yusuf. So I'm so grateful for that.
And Farah ji has been a guest artist for us and done workshops at Habib University as well for the Center for South Asian Music. And I'm really grateful that collaboration extends beyond just the two artists. And
right. So can we have the third piece now?
And as this is queuing up, this is a special tribute also to one of, I believe, viewers, Ustad Mahmood Ali Khan Saab, who is the vocalist in this piece.
That was so beautiful. बहुत शुक्रिया उस्ताद महमूद अली खान साहब.
Yes.
क्या खूबसूरत, बहुत ही खूबसूरत. So Farah, let's this whole new situation with the pandemic and how are you coping with it? I know it's a very difficult time for everyone and very difficult for artists, for performers, theater performers, musicians, all kinds of stage performers, actors. How are you coping? Yusuf, how are you coping? How do you see this whole situation panning out? How are you working within this situation?
Go ahead.
So I think I'll speak to the situation in Pakistan. It might be a little bit different in different countries, but I mean, for me personally, it's fine because I have the access and the access to technology and the internet to be able to continue, let's say, online classes and teaching. It's not easy, and of course, there's a bit of a learning curve. But I think for the majority of the musicians in Pakistan, this is a very difficult time period and one where they will have to adapt to online classes and things like that. There's no performances happening. There's no because there's no congregations, and so those musicians that were really thriving on live performance are going to find it very difficult. So I think this is something that in Pakistan and in I'm sure even in our neighbor India, this would be a very big problem for many artists whose livelihood depends on live interaction and performance, or even teaching for that matter.
Right.
I would agree with you. Again, it is a similar situation in that, I do feel fortunate. I do have the access to, though virtually, stay in touch with my students. I'm very touched that most of them are able to and have a desire to maintain their training, however unique the method is. But it is a shakeup for everybody in the sense of we just frankly don't know how to plan. I can say I had a number of performances, tours set up between April into July, and those, needless to say, were all canceled. And most likely, most of them will not get rescheduled. And, for even in the US with artists, when you're trying to it takes years to build those relationships to even secure a concert. So both, I'm not able to do my work that would be for 2022, 2023, nor can I really, do that. And again, I'm not alone. There are so many and so many more hurting way more than I am. I think because I straddle this place of having a school and a performance career, from at least, financially maintaining the school is helping with that. But it is challenging. There are a number of emergency funding opportunities in the US. So we are lucky to have access to that. Now, a whole other session could be done on the, accurate allocation and distribution of those funds. But I own my privilege being in America, and yet being in America, being an artist, you are still very much at the bottom of that totem pole, if you will. So it is a challenging time. And I think the thing that we can all do, artist or not, but I'll speak even as an artist, is to use it as an opportunity to the best of our ability for introspection. We often get caught up in the rat race. And by the sheer nature of things slowing down, it's an opportunity to say, am I working in a way that feels like I am meeting the integrity that I have developed for myself artistically and otherwise? Am I burning myself out? What are some things I'd like to explore that I haven't had a chance to? And again, I own that I have that privilege because my refrigerator is stocked, but there are plenty of people that is not the case. So to, have compassion for those who are not as privileged, and what can we be doing to support them? And that is something, again, we all have to be so aware of.
Right. So thank you so much, Yusuf. Thank you to all the other musicians who
So this next
sorry?
piece this next piece that we're going to be
I just wanted
showing.
to sort of, can I just
Sorry.
because once that piece comes on, I think that'll be the end of the show.
Right.
I'm just wanting to thank you and the rest of the musicians.
No,
And of
my
course,
pleasure.
Farah, thank you so much for being on T2F Live. You have always supported this platform, and we look forward to seeing you performing live, actually, at T2F again. Thank you.
I look forward to it. Thank
you. Yusuf, can you introduce the piece now, the performance?
So the next piece, actually, the year that we also met Farah was also the year that the album "The Essence of South Asia" was released, and in that album there was a piece called "Kirne," which is referring to the rag that the piece is in. The rag is Nat Bhairav, and this is an early morning rag, and we kept the name Kirne because it's the first rays of light that it's depicting. And this composition, the first part of the composition, is actually by Ustad Sajid Hussain. And it was such a beautiful tune. It really captured my heart the first time I heard it. And then when the album was released, this tune also became a very apt dedication to Sabine. And once Farah, I think, got to hear it and heard it with that context as well, I think it became very fitting for this session that a collaboration be done. And so, of course, the musicians of Thirst Group are unaware of the collaboration that's happened, and they will be now.
Through video,
Because
yes.
through a video. The video was recorded in 2015, and it had been sponsored at that time by Scenery Bank. So we're thankful for their help and support in getting our album through and this video. And so Farah's worked with that very video.
To piggyback on that, this is something we performed live with some of the musicians, Yusuf and Sheroz, at T2F. And when we decided to do it for this particular event here, for all the reasons that Yusuf already contextualized, to me, this also speaks to the time that we're in, and this idea of sort of seeing that light ahead of us and having, that peace within us to know that everything is going to be okay, and coming together to support one another. So when I created movement and choreography with it, it was sort of that idea of even, the idea of, oh, now we again will be adorning ourselves to go out and meet and engage. And that's Kirne.
Right. Sorry, just before we move to that performance, are there any questions that you would like to answer, Farah?
I'd be happy to, sure, if yes.
If anyone has any questions, if any questions were...
I did see a question earlier that somebody asked if I teach online. And, again, this is a period of time where online teaching is happening. I will say, generally speaking, I am not a fan of teaching new students online. I just feel that connection between a teacher student is so important. And with dance, that being in that same physical space is of the utmost importance. So the students that I'm teaching online are ones that I've already had a chance to develop that relationship. They understand my style and methodology, and I also know them on a deeper level. So at this time, I'm not. When I come to Pakistan, I have had the chance to, of course, teach in person at T2F or be part of other institutions and such, doing workshops at Indus Valley School of the Arts or, different ones in that sort. But as of now, not currently teaching online. I'm not sure if there are other questions.
Any more questions?
But I'm happy. Do reach out to me on social media, and I will certainly direct you to some people who are teaching in the various cities in Pakistan that I have gotten to know over the years, and I would strongly recommend them.
Great. So thank you once again, Yusuf, Farah. Thank you to everyone who's been watching. And we end with this lovely performance, Kirne.
Thank you.